Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Glen Willis. We're recording on a Sunday night of a week that's going to see the Hawks play Dallas at home Monday, Cleveland on the road Wednesday, and then Cleveland at home with a chance to do some NBA Cup stuff Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. It's going to be a weird one. Make sure you're awake early for Black Friday basketball. Um,
Yeah.
so Glenn, there's a lot of ways we could start here, but maybe I'll start with Quinn's post game from the most recent game where he was asked about Trey's, possible sort of Achilles stiffness or whatnot, and he kind of spun it around and said that actually, Trey's doing some of the stuff that maybe the rest of the team isn't, which is looking for pass receivers when trying to make a play in the paint, not necessarily shooting quite as much, like kind of hinting that maybe they should be passing a little bit more when they're shooting sort of I'm paraphrasing now, but maybe non-layup shots in the paint. What did you think about what he said there? Is there any truth to that? Do you think that's a real issue?
I think it is an issue, and for me, Dyson comes to mind. I think Dyson is still learning how to use his length and learning how to measure his floater and a layup where he's kind of getting an angle. I think that's to be totally expected. We talk about he's scaling up in an offensive role for the first time ever, and so he comes to mind. And I think, but I have to think Quinn trusts him. So like take those feedback loops and those reps and learn from them and grow. But there's this other part of my brain, that is like, who's really good at that? Veet. Veet's really good at that, you know. And so, sometimes when I'm watching, I'm like, wow, they're playing from behind or whatever. And it's like, Kobe's getting minutes. Kobe needs to play. I fully support Kobe playing. Kobe needs to play. Veet has more progressed, in kind of that area, secondary creator kind of role than Kobe is now. When Kobe's on the floor, typically Jalen's initiating the offense, and Kobe's kind of starting off ball. So I don't think I meant it as like a judgmental thing to say.
No, I mean he was
It
he
was
was say, he was saying it to praise Trey, but it's hard to
right,
say that Trey's doing this better than anybody without kind of on the backside it being a little bit of a pointing
but
to an
they,
issue that needs a little
yeah,
bit of
but they,
improvement.
yeah, but they leaning into development this year, leaning into young players this year, built a roster with secondary creators who are scaling up for the first time ever in their career, and I think it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be up and down. And I mean Dyson needs to play a lot. He's their best defender by a lot, on the floor. And he's in that Boston game, he did a lot of great work on the ball, a lot of great work on the ball. So, but it's gonna be up and down with him. Kobe has been it's been rough the few games he's played. I think you and I both believe he can play. He just needs reps. He just needs time. He just needs experience. But it was interesting in the Chicago game that he back from the break in between the third and fourth quarter and beats on the floor, there. And so for me, it's like, um, it must, I mean, and Quinn said a couple, I don't know, maybe a week ago, maybe more than a week ago now, when everybody's back, there are going to be hard choices to make. And right now, those hard choices seem to be Harrison out, the out, and they're leaning into kind of everyone else. So, Kobe and the rest. So, hey, it's funny, I'll go ahead and plug it. Like Brad and I had a conversation. I posted my Patreon today, and what the last thing we talked about was that we both think the defense is going to progress more than the offense this year, and and I think the offense is going to be pretty choppy for a while. On Twitter earlier on Sunday, I posted the Hawks points per possession by play type. And for everything that doesn't go through the bigs, they're in the bottom 10.
But okay, but
Yeah.
why is that? It's because
They're
they're
letting it.
trapping Trey and they're saying, "Go ahead, go play through Clint Capella. We want you to do that. We're going to send two to Trey. We're going to rotate behind Clint and kind of, I mean, when they rotate behind Clint, they're trying to take away is the rim. Like Clint can do whatever he in the world he wants to do 14 feet from the hoop.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
they're they're
they're
just
like Clint
trying to
Capella.
stop the rim, right? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
They're like Clint Capella can score 16 points. We're good with that. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. And if he's the most important passer in your offense, that's kind of a win as well. Like you it's not like he hasn't made progress as a passer. You know, he does a reasonable job of that. He's way better than he was 3 years ago at that. But he's not the finisher that he was 3 years ago. So their teams are pretty comfortable saying, you know what, we just want to get Trey, we just want to wipe him out of the offense, and then we'll kind of play 4-on-3 and leave Clint in space and live with that. So that, to me, when I saw those relative rankings, that's not necessarily, hey, this is the strength of a team. To me, that's teams saying we can live with this thing. We just want to take away all those other things off the list.
I think that's totally fair. I think it's totally fair. But I also think maybe 1B, that maybe that's 1A. 1B is they're like, okay, let Dyson create. Let whoever else create. Let David Roddy, and when he was playing, let him create. And that was another part of that. I mean, in my mind, Roddy, for where he is in the pecking order of the roster, Roddy was really good at offense when he played. Real issues on defense, no doubt about that. Um, and so it's just, for me, I just think this team has more defensive readiness than offensive readiness right now. And that's why you're already seeing the stats kind of there. They started like bottom five. Now they're moving up every week. They're moving up a little bit defensive rating, and they're getting a little bit better. The holy grail is magical 3-point shooting, of course, Um, but there are indicators that they're progressing defensively. Um, Offensively, I think it's going to be choppy for a while.
Okay. I, sorry, there's a stat I need here. I gotta see what
Right.
because I'm pretty sure if I remember this from the other day. All right, so the Hawks, we talk about them progressing on defense, but at the same time, and of course, the three-pointers are a huge factor in this.
Yep.
But they are 29th out of 30 teams in opponent effective field goal percentage. Like the fact that they're giving up the volume of threes and the accuracy of threes that they are, whatever other defensive efficiency that they have, the net effect of it is that they're not really that good of a defensive team. I mean, if you're 29th at effective field goal percentage allowed, how good is that? Like that doesn't that I don't know. Like I agree with you. I do think that the strength of this team is defense, and that we've seen that they've found a different path to some wins this season. They've gotten some wins by clamping down in the fourth quarter that they could never have gotten last season, the season before that. They didn't have those defensive chops, but somehow the total cumulative effect of it is that they can only do it in small spurts when the threes aren't falling, but they're over 4 quarters, the average isn't all that great.
Yeah, I think a lot of if we broke that down, right, I think that would almost completely be just explained with the opponent 3-point shooting, right? Hawks are. I mean, I don't quote me on this, but the last time I checked, they were top one of the five best teams in fewest points in the paint allowed. One of the five best teams defensive field goal percentage inside of 6 feet, right? But now the way they're doing that is they are packing bodies into the paint all the time. And it seems to be a strategic choice to say we're going to control the rim, we're going to control the paint. But they're on an average game, they're minus 12 at the 3-point line. Now they're plus 9 or 10 in the paint in the average game, right? So they win a lot of, and so it seems to be like, hey, we'd like for our points in the paint to even out the opponent's heads at the 3-point line, then we'll kind of go from there. What's killing the Hawks right now is giving up points on turnovers. They're giving up a lot of points on turnovers. But it's I'd love to like ask like get an honest answer for Quinn. Like Quinn, are you building this thing like where you're like right now we're just focused on controlling the paint, controlling the rim, controlling rebounding, and then we're gonna add other components from there. I mean, for me, I thought that sack game, they really did a good job chasing 3 pointers off the 3 point line. That was the one game that's the one I remember where they worked really, really hard to chase guys off the 3 point line and force them to dribble down into the paint where there were four bodies in the paint. You know, Chicago did a great job driving, kick, driving, kick, driving, kick. Golden State did a great job of creating stress of their split cut. They killed the Hawks with split cuts. That whole game. But for I think they are going to move the needle defensively across the season. But I think I'm I'm watching for what they do dramatically to start to more consistently impact 3 point shooters because I mean they're not going to get above say 20th. Let's stay above say get the league average in defensive rating if they are allowing the highest percentage, a top three volume in opponent 3 point shooting and top three. What has been this year, I think the whole season, the highest percentage at the 3 point line. That's not going to get you to the league average, for sure. So, but I'd love to hear Quinn say if he would, and I don't mean to pick on Quinn. Coaches summarize, right? I'd love to hear him say we are focusing on building this defense from the inside out. We want to control the paint, control the rim, control the boards, and kind of go from there. The next phase is X, or the next phase is whatever, because they have to get to having a greater impact on the 3 point line. If you talk to both coaches and people who track data, they will, and those two camps don't often agree on things, right? But they will both say defense can greater impact 3 point volume than 3 point make percentage. Right, you can impact volume, and the Hawks are giving up a ton of 3 point attempts, and they're giving up a very high percentage there, and that is the next big thing for them to figure out defensively. But I still feel like point of attack defense, rim protection, getting bodies into the paint. Uh, their defensive spacing is better. I know Hawk fans don't really want to hear it while they're watching opposing teams make 18 3 pointers, a game. You know, and I get it, and I totally understand that.
Okay, I want to backtrack to something we were talking about a minute ago and see if I can string together a coherent sequence of thoughts here. Going back to the initial point, which was, talking about Quinn, his post game after the most recent game, saying that, there were maybe too many players trying to finish, and again, I'm paraphrasing, difficult non-layup finishes in the paint when maybe they should be looking for open shooters that, might be available. And I feel like that was a fair critique of that game. I feel like there were a number of instances where that really happened. And what I want to say about that is like, first of all, just kind of take the blame because I believe that at one point in the preseason, I was like, well, this is a little bit different. This team has a lot of finishers at the rim. I think I lied a little bit, right? Exaggerated. We had a small sample there. They don't really. Riza Shea, Hunter, um, Daniels. There's a lot of guys trying to finish with craft, you know, in the 4 to 6 foot range when they're getting in the paint. They're not really getting all the way to the rim. They're getting pretty close to it and making sort of some difficult finishes. Um, and just keeping that in mind, that maybe this team isn't the world's greatest finishing team. I still got a long way to go to tie these thoughts together. Okay.
You're good.
Keeping in mind that this maybe isn't the greatest finishing team, I know that they probably have like a computer model that says, hey, if we shoot threes and when we shoot threes, we crash from the corner to the offensive glass, we'll generate 1.8 extra points per game or something like that. And I think that for the teams that were here when Quinn started, with Sadiq Bey and early Trey of a couple of years ago. They weren't necessarily the greatest teams on defense. I think that was a good strategy. I now think they need to ease up on crashing the offensive glass because And that's not saying stop Clint. Like Clint should go every possession. Clint should go, but maybe he should be the only one. Like I think they're selling out too much for offensive rebounds, and what the net effect of that is they lose a little bit in transition defense. And when you lose that a little bit, like first quarter, second quarter especially, guys see the ball go through the rim on a nothing chance where you just really didn't have a contest at all. And then they do may make one other shot and they're in a rhythm. And then suddenly this is a guy who's hitting threes and stuff like that. And because this team now is so much more competent on the ball on defense than they were last year, 2 years ago, I want to see the defense set as much as possible because I think for this team, the easier points that you want to get are the ones that you get from turnovers when you set your defense, as opposed to trying to get second chance points. I think this is a team that when they get the defense set and guys that they're playing against aren't in a rhythm, they can do some pretty good things. So to me, I think it's kind of a spiral, or not spiral, like a cyclical effect, starting with maybe, hey, do everything you can to get your defense set. Because if you give up first quarter transition points, second quarter transition points, I think those are really missed opportunities where, if you can get one or two, three possessions a game where your defense is a whole lot more set as opposed to giving up easy transition things, I think that's worth the exchange for what you might gain um, when maybe somebody other than Capella or Kongwu is getting an offensive rebound. I'd much rather see uh, a commitment to transition defense and then start it from there, and hopefully you can generate more turnovers and get some other easy points that way. Because I just feel like there are too many players that are getting confidence early in games, and uh, I think that's maybe one tweak that might work.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because whenever we talk about that, the extreme example I think of is Oklahoma City last year sent two or three to the offensive glass all the time, and they gave up like they had to go pull. I think they gave up. They were the top five in most opponent fast break points allowed. So they were sending two or three to glass, but they believed they could offset that with their own second chance points, right? So that was a formula that they were chasing. They have big guards. Like, I mean, they have big guards that can get back in transition and like play 2 on 3 and get a and their coach just get a deflection, just knock the ball out of bounds, just whatever, right? The ball, get a kick on a pass or whatever. And depending upon the line the Hawks have on the floor, the Hawks don't always have that. Oklahoma City has big guards. For me, I think Jalen is really good on the offensive glass, but when you send Clint and Jalen, it's like, man, you got some small. Depending on who else is on the floor, you got some small defenders getting back. It's hard, and so it's an interesting thing to kind of think through what they should do. I do think they have wings that can finish. I think the issue is too many lineups the Hawks have on the floor don't have enough shooting, and so opposing teams are doing like what the Hawks do on defense and just putting four bodies in the paint. And Dyson's not Dyson, nice floater, nice one-on-one attack, 1-on-2, 1-on-3. He's probably not going to make that shot, right? Jalen is still kind of feeling his way into like, do I attack physically? Do I get to a little 1 foot step back?
And
He's
to me,
Jalen's
he's the
still.
exception. Like all that stuff Quinn said about, hey, maybe you should be looking for open shooters. Like, no, Jalen, if you're within 6 feet from the rim, if you can just overpower somebody, go do it, buddy. Don't take a turnaround. Don't kick it out. If you feel like you can get all the way there, go all the way there. Like he gets accepted here.
But I mean, but it's funny because this goes back to all the games you took in College Park last year. Keaton drive and kick. Keaton's really good at that. Keaton makes smart choices, right? V drive and kick, right? We've seen a lot of that, and they're swinging. And they had to play Garrison while Boogie was out. They had to play Garrison while Boogie was out, right? And Garrison has been good on the catch this year I mean, he's really added that to his game where it's not just catch and shoot. He's
Yes, that's right.
driven. He's
Yeah,
attacked the
big,
closeout with the
big
dribble.
difference.
Big difference. And but it's like they're swinging the minutes to guys who are still figuring kind of that stuff out, And I understand why. Like you have to invest in Kobe, you have to invest in Dyson, you have to invest in Zachary Richeshay, right? And Richeshay for a 19-year-old, like he shows a lot of playmaking. It's up and down, for sure. But this kind of goes back to the whole. I don't know if the conundrum is the right word, or the whole challenge of chasing wins and development all at the same time. It's hard to do. And so I just wonder, like week by week by week, if they stay in that, like, I don't know, 5 to 9 pack or 6 seed, whatever it is right now. They're only what, like three back from the fifth spot or whatever it is. Will Quinn start making different choices in the fourth quarter? He did against Chicago. He threw Veed out there, right? And if Kwangu is not playing more consistently, I mean, I personally believe Onyeka Kwangu can play. He can play.
Who?
I've
Um,
seen
I
enough.
I didn't hear what you said. It broke up a little bit.
Kwangu can play. Like
Oh yeah, okay.
it's weird that his shot's not going down right now. That's just weird to me. But we've seen multiple. This dude knows how to make shots, right? Um, but I wonder, like as the season goes on, and as they try to stay in that pack that's fighting for, say, avoiding the play in, trying to get to six, that kind of thing. Will Quinn start making different choices about who he deploys in the fourth quarter? And that's, I mean, that's hard. That's hard because you want to develop your young guys. They're invested in these young guys. These young guys are scaling up into roles that are bigger than any role they've ever had before. But at the same time, they clearly want to win games because when you get to like the midpoint of the fourth quarter, Quinn is throwing veteran lineups on the floor at the end of games to hope to chase a win. Um, and and so that makes me think, like, how much do you lean on Keaton? Like there's a limit. Like as long as he's on the contract he's on, there's a limit on how many times they can use him. How much do you lean on Beat, right? I mean, to me, if there's one change that they would make in the rotation right now, is I think Beat should be playing a lot. I mean, a lot for bench guy. As much as 25 minutes, like a lot. He's perfectly built for the offense they're running, and he's gotten better and better on defense. So it's just I honestly, when I watch the play, like no judgmentalism, like no me pretending like I know better than Quinn, you know, but me having questions and me having things that cause me to scratch my head and like, well, I wonder what the thought process is here. I wonder if the process is there. Because I mean, Keenan's a really experienced basketball player, really a really experienced basketball player, and Kobe is rough right now, like really rough right now. But at the same time, Kobe is a big part of their future. I know they think that. I know they believe that. You know, and so I think it's a really tricky balance they're trying to find. And I just wonder, as one more week in the schedule, do they start to kind of shift towards like we got to do stuff to win. We got to do what we need to do to win. 'Cause that's not, for at least the first three quarters. That's not where they are right now. The way I read it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate if they like gave Kobe an assignment to the G League for 2 weeks and,
Yep.
let him play 37 minutes a game down there just to get his rhythm. He's
Yep.
he's never had to
No,
really do this
confidence. No
kind of
confidence.
thing
Yeah.
before where he's coming back mid-season from injury and being counted on this much. Um, and being a fixed rotation piece. So it's a little bit of a challenge and that would open up some Veet minutes. But to go back to you know what you were saying a minute ago about part of the reason that the finishers aren't quite the finishers is because they don't have the floor spacing. That's true, and it's also true that that applies to what I was saying about Clint at the beginning. Part of the reason it's difficult for him to sort of be the hub of the 4.3, I'm sorry, the 4-on-3, um, is because the spacing isn't quite there. The bodies are closer to him because they're not as they're not as afraid of the shooters that are out there. And so I think, this week's a really important week to see what this looks like with Bogey, because Bogey had just two complete stinkers when he came back, to be expected, after a long layoff. And then, in the Chicago game, he looked like himself again. So, if he is indeed feeling better, like, it's time to see, okay, what are things going to look like now when you've got, substantially more floor spacing with him out there. Like, it's just a different beast than what they might have had earlier in the season. So it's it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like with him out there. And I thought it was interesting today at practice, like, Bogey wasn't at his usual basket. He was out there with Quinn and one of the assistant coaches on the basket closest to the media, and it just looked like they were going over kind of two things. One was just sort of him practicing his finishes, but it also looked like he was practicing his finishes after they had done some stuff kind of working on screens where he's the screener. Like, um, one of the things they did really early in the season before he was gone, maybe this was the preseason, but they were using those Spain pick and roll actions, and I thought those were highly effective. But you don't really have anybody on the team that can be that third screener other than Bogey. Um, so I'm interested to
Yeah,
see if they go back to that
yeah,
at all. But that
yeah,
didn't
and
look
I
like
saw.
what that didn't look like what they were pantomiming out today when he was
Yeah,
doing his little
that's
screen
more
action.
more of the. I mean, so they've been running a lot of guard screen with Dyson, a lot. Trey and Dyson, a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, and when I saw what you posted today, it looked like Bogey getting ready to get into guard screen with Bogey, and when Dyson's not on the floor. And Bogey will drag a lot more. Bogey has a lot more gravity than Dyson, like way, way more, right?
Yeah,
And so
he
Trey,
might be
Trey,
the
Trey
only real, it's hard to think of a whole lot of screeners on the roster who do have uh,
yeah,
a whole lot of
yeah. I
gravity.
mean, I know it's like you think like Hunter would have some, but still teams really don't react to him. It's weird, but I mean, even though he's making the games he's played this year, he's been a shot maker, this year for sure. But Bogey is in my mind, Bogey is one of the 10 best shooters in the league in my mind, right? Especially when you consider movement shooting, right? In that sense, and Trey might be like, hallelujah, Bogey go screen, brush screen, whatever it is, slip to pop into the 3 point line. Now actually has some space to work with, and I think that's something to keep our eye on the next 1, 2, 3 games. I mean, this schedule this week is tough. This is a tough, tough schedule this week.
Yeah.
And I think they're gonna need a lot from Mookie this week to create space. Because I mean, Dallas crashes the paint. Cleveland has good rim protection. Cleveland,
Cleveland has
Dallas
very
doesn't
good
really
rim
generate a lot of ball
protection.
pressure. Yeah, Cleveland also leans into ball pressure a lot too. And so, I mean, this is gonna be a tough week for them. But it might be one of those things where like Quinn, like, are you going to downgrade development a little bit and get your fully ready players like onto the court more? And is this going to be like how
It
much
does
is Cody?
it does seem
Cody
like Rizai Shea's playing less in fourth quarters, doesn't it? Am I hallucinating that?
when he's struggling, he I think he get and I think part of that is they don't want him playing like a million minutes this year. I think
Yeah.
but I think the other part is that let him watch crunch time, let him watch how the game is different late
And
every minute
Hunter's
you get later in the
expensive.
fourth quarter. And, yeah, Hunter is indispensable right now. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just. I mean, for me, I want Jalen and Hunter on the court both in the last 5 minutes of the game. For me, and that's not something I know that Flex fans out there, are kind of stuck in this perception of Hunter. Hunter's been really good. Hopefully, he can stay healthy, but they need size and they need offensive capability. And even Hunter for Jalen, Hunter provides some space that like it's like a quarter of what Bogey gives you, or maybe a fifth of what Bogey gives you, but it's something that that's helpful that other guys aren't going to give you, right now. So I mean, I'm so eager to see how Quinn manages the rotation this week in these three tough games, and if it's going to be different or not. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if, like, if there's a close game this week, like, maybe you close with a lineup that doesn't include Dyson Daniels, like because obviously he's been, a revelation. He's been just fantastic. But, if you need Bogey out there for offense, Hunter is just a better offensive choice than Daniels if you need sort of a little bit more offense, if you're a little bit behind late in the game, something like that. And, maybe it's going to be weird in a game like Dallas where you want somebody guarding Kyrie, but like if you just need a number one defensive option for 5 minutes, Hunter can be that in a lot of cases. And if it's even better if you let Daniels take the brunt of it for the 48 minutes, like if you could save Hunter for the stretch run, but I don't know that you necessarily need Daniels to finish if you're going to have, a center, Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, Bogey, Trey, something like that. Um,
Yeah, I think it certainly matters whether you're playing from behind or ahead.
yeah.
I think if you're playing for ahead, you can lean into Dyson, you
Yeah.
know. But Hunter has a good track record against Luca. You know,
Yeah,
I
no
mean,
Luka
Luca's.
tomorrow though.
Oh, yeah, I'm way behind on that. So that's big. That's big. Um, and then in Cleveland though, you need players who can defend guards.
Yeah.
And that's where Dyson might have. You might select Dyson not to play a lot on Monday because he's going to need to play 38 minutes on Wednesday. you know, that kind of thing. Because I mean, Donovan Mitchell's a handful. You know, so. But I just, outcome, how many wins. Like, I just want to see them be really. I also want to see them be competitive and show improvement. That's really, I think, more important than anything right now. I understand Hawks fans want them to win. I mean, I want them to win too. I want them to have good feedback loops and have success and reinforce their work and all that sort of stuff too. But this, I mean, Kyrie stuff, Kyrie stuff, and they're very. Dallas is very deep at the 4 and the 5, really, really deep at the 4 and the 5. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that.
What do you make of Onyeka Okongwu's play over the last couple of weeks? Like what's going well, what's not going well?
Yeah, it's funny. It's been to me. It seems like it's really been up and down, like really up and down. I said I think there's 3 games they've won this year. They don't win without what he did in those games. And there's been other games where it's like, man, he just can't get shots that are. He's normally like 70%, shot maker, and they're just warming out, or whatever. Not making his corner threes at all. Last year he shot, high 30s, maybe even low 40s from the corner. Um, and for me, it's like part of it is like he's playing with Kobe some, and Jalen's running the offense, and Jalen's really knew a lot of stuff. I think he's caught up in a lack of rhythm and a lack of catching the ball on time and catching the ball in his spot. I think he's having to support a lot of new initiators, and I think that's impacting him. But I hope they figure it out. And if that means that Clint has to go to the bench early, and he needs more time with Trey to get him going before Trey comes off. There's something maybe you can do there to give him 3 minutes with Trey before Trey leaves the floor in the first quarter. To kind of get him playing with a higher functioning passer and a higher functioning creator. Um, I think that could help. But
Yeah, he's been in a lot of
I,
tough lineups early in the season.
yeah,
When they had three guards, like he was in some disastrous lineups.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And he was playing with all the new guys, a
Yeah, he
lot.
was.
When he's closed with Trey, he's done well. And so for me, and I know there's like we're focusing on one thing, like, hey, play Onyeka with Trey more, you know. But Glenn and his staff are dealing with like 8 different little things. Like, well, if we do that, then we got to do this, and we got to do this, and and that sort of thing. But for me, I my philosophy, coaching wise, again, coaching kids is he needs confidence. How can we get him confidence? Let's get him some time with Trey. And you just boil it down to kind of very simple kind of tactics. Does that work at the NBA level the same way? I can't say. But he looks like a guy that just needs a confidence builder. And for me, easiest way to do that is to get him on the floor with training more. You know, that's my thought process. There may be more to it than that, but that's what I like to see. Like early in the season, they were pulling Clint pretty early and getting Onyeka on and having some time with Trey. And but more like but they've been running Clint more than 8, 9 minute mark in the first quarter, and it's been Onyeka on with Kobe. And that's a big difference for center, you know. So I'd like to see him get more time with Trey to get him going.
And even if he doesn't, at least with the fully healthy roster, like he's even if it's not quite as much time with Trey, it should hopefully get a little better just from more depth and more consistency with the players that he is playing with. So
And their swing to guard screens has. I mean, he hasn't been in the short roll much, and he's really good in the
yeah,
short roll. And that's a fast shot decision. Like he's a good processor in that role,
right.
and it feels like he hasn't got a lot of that this year at all. And so I even think like just designing an ATO where he's in the short roll, so just anything that can kind of get him back to things that are very natural to him and feel like I'm leaning in some the strongest part of my skill sets. That's the stuff I want to see them manufacture for him in the next 3, 4, 5 games.
That's a really good point.
They need him. They need him.
Yeah, they do need him, and just being the corner shooter and knowing that that's not necessarily his strongest suit yet, it just feels like it's sapping him a little bit.
Yeah, you could see like a little hesitation and it throws the timing of the shot off. Just a little, and Quinn is in his ear, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it. It's like, man, if I got a couple of floaters to go down or a little half hook, baby hook to go down, then I'm in the corner. Completely different thing from a confidence level.
Right.
Completely different thing from a confidence level. And so that's my thing is get us the time with Trey, get him going. That's what I like to see. And
All right.
I know that playing with Capella and Jalen's tough, so that makes it hard. So yeah.
All right. I appreciate your time, Glenn.
Yeah.
Good night, Bob.
Good night, Bob.